the god of stories. Have you ever read a book for the second time? You know the ending. You see every clue, every misstep, every moment of foreshadowing the characters blindly walk past. It's a curious, detached sort of power, isn't it? To know the hero's fate before he does. To see the dagger before it strikes. Now, imagine reading every book, every story ever written, and every story that ever could be written, all at once. Not one after another, but simultaneously, the ink of every page bleeding into a single, deafening, infinite scream of narrative. That is where I live now. It is where I have always been, I suppose. I just didn't have the eyes to see it. They called me the God of Mischief. A charming title for a younger, more foolish god. Mischief implies a certain playfulness. A harmless prank that goes a bit too far. What I craved wasn't mischief. It was significance. I was a footnote in my brother's epic poem, a shadow cast by a sun too bright to look at directly. So I learned to dance in that shadow. I learned to make it long and terrifying, to make people fear the coming of the night because I might be hiding in it. I told myself this was power. I told myself this was control. My name is Loki, and I am a liar. That has been the one consistent thread in a life woven from deceit. The greatest lie, of course, was the one I told myself, that I was destined to rule. A glorious purpose, I called it. I shouted it from mountaintops. I whispered it to kings in their sleep. I believed it with the fervent, desperate faith of a man drowning in an ocean of his own making, convinced the next wave will lift him to shore. The truth is, my glorious purpose was an anchor. It was a story I wrote to explain my own pain. I was the adopted son, the second prince, the lesser brother. Odin, in all his gilded, one-eyed wisdom, saw me as a tool, a bridge between two realms he had already conquered. He gave me a life, yes, but it was a borrowed one, a gilded cage I spent centuries trying to burn down, not realizing the fire would consume me first. And Thor, oh Thor, my brother, my brilliant, thunderous, impossibly noble brother. For so long I saw his light not as warmth, but as an indictment of my own darkness. Every cheer for him was a jeer for me. Every victory he won was a testament to my failure. I sharpened my wits into daggers because I could not match his hammer. I learned to twist words into poisons because I could not summon the lightning. I hated him for it. I hated him with a love so deep and so profound it curdled into something monstrous. I wanted to stand on his neck, not to kill him, but simply to be taller, just for a moment. To see the world from his vantage point. To feel the sun on my face without being blinded by his. That was the story I knew. The one I lived, breathed, and bled for. The story of the jealous brother, the would-be king, the magnificent villain. It was a good story, dramatic, tragic. It had pathos, and then it ended. Or rather, I was shown the ending and the beginning, and all the miserable, wretched pages in between. There is a place outside of time. A grey, bureaucratic, soul-crushingly mundane little corner of reality where history is not lived but filed. They called it the Time Variance Authority. And they showed me my book. My life, spooled out on a cheap projector, narrated by a dispassionate clock with a folksy accent. I watched myself fall. I watched myself fail. I watched my schemes. My brilliant, intricate tapestries of ambition unravel into pathetic, predictable little knots. But the worst part, the truly horrific, soul-flaying part, was watching the moments I'd misread. I saw my mother, Frigga, the only one who ever truly saw me. I watched her die, again, and I saw that the magic she taught me, the one thing I thought was truly mine, was a gift of her love. A love I repaid by leading her murderer to her door. In the story, I was telling myself I was the victim of fate. On that screen, I was just a fool. A broken, selfish child whose lashing out cost him the only unconditional love he had ever known. And I saw Thor. I saw him mourn me. I saw him find happiness and love and a purpose beyond a crown. I saw him talk about me, not as a villain, but as his brother, lost and confused. The hate I had nurtured for a millennium was a phantom, a ghost I had conjured to keep me company in my self-imposed exile. The story I thought was a grand tragedy was, in fact, a simple, heartbreaking tale of a brother who just wanted his brother back. And I was too busy writing my own villainous epic to read the room. That is what it means to be broken. Not by a hammer, not by a fall from a bridge between worlds, but by the quiet, simple, devastating truth. The TVA showed me my story was not my own. I was a character, a variable they called a variant, an anomaly in their so-called sacred timeline. My glorious purpose was to make my brother a better hero. My destiny was to fail, to suffer, to die, so that the approved version of the story could reach its foregone conclusion. My life wasn't a footnote, it was a necessary sacrifice, and I wasn't even the one who got to decide. This is where the story should change, isn't it? This is where the broken prince finds a new purpose, joins the good fight, perhaps finds a bit of redemption. And for a while I tried to play that part. I met others like me, other versions of myself, all broken in our own unique, tragic ways. And I met her, Sylvie, a force of nature, a storm of pure, righteous fury, tearing down the story that had been written for her. She was everything I pretended to be. Where I used mischief, she used a machete. Where I postured, she acted. She looked at the grand, cosmic lie and decided to burn the library to the ground. And I hesitated, because for the first time I saw the alternative. I met a man named Mobius. He was a bureaucrat. He loved jet skis. He believed, with a simple, unshakable decency, that the system, however flawed, existed to prevent something worse. He looked at me, the god of mischief, the monster of New York, and saw a friend. He offered me a chance not to be a hero or a villain, but just me. So I stood at the precipice of it all, at the end of time, with the choice in my hands. Sylvie, wanting to kill the author, to give everyone the terrifying, beautiful, catastrophic freedom of an unwritten page. And the author himself, a tired, lonely man who called himself He Who Remains. The man who had pruned countless timelines, murdered trillions, all to prevent a war. A war fought by his own variants, all vying to write their own story on top of everyone else's. He presented the choice as simple: his ordered, gilded cage, or a multiversal war that would tear everything apart, control or chaos. A single story or an infinite, screaming madness of them. Sylvie chose chaos. She chose freedom. She plunged her blade into the heart of the story, and the ink began to run. The single thread of the sacred timeline frayed, and then it exploded. An infinity of branches, of new stories, new possibilities, all bursting into existence at once. It was beautiful, it was terrifying, and it was all dying. The loom that wove time couldn't handle it. The sheer volume of narrative, of life, was too much. The branches were withering as quickly as they grew. Free will was a plague, and the universe was succumbing to the sickness. And I finally understood. The lie wasn't the story. The lie was that there could only be one. The lie wasn't control. The lie was that chaos was the only alternative. He Who Remains wasn't a god. He was a gardener who was terrified of his own garden, so he only allowed one flower to grow. He chose order over life. I had spent my entire existence trying to seize control, trying to sit on a throne. I saw thrones in Asgard, on Earth, at the end of time. I saw power as a seat, a crown, a scepter. I was wrong. Power isn't about holding a scepter. It's about holding it all together. So I walked out to the loom. I walked into the storm of dying timelines. The temporal radiation peeled me apart, remaking me with every step. I saw every life, every moment, every choice from every possible reality. I felt the birth of stars and the heat death of universes. I heard the first words of lovers and the last rattle of kings. I saw my own life not as one story, but 1,000. A Loki who succeeded. A Loki who was a hero. A Loki who lived a long, quiet life. And the Loki who died, broken and afraid, at the hands of a titan. I felt it all. And I took the dying branches, I took the infinite, screaming, beautiful stories, and I wove them together with my own life, my own magic. I pulled them into myself, not to control them, but to give them life, to give them a place to grow. There is a throne at the end of time. I am sitting on it. It is not made of gold or of lies. It is made of living, breathing time. I am the loom now. I am the heart of the tree. My glorious purpose was never to rule. It was to be the thing that allows everyone else to have a choice, to live their own messy, unpredictable, beautiful, and sometimes tragic stories. I am no longer the god of mischief. I am the god of stories. I am the lonely sentry holding the walls of reality together so that a man I know can someday ride a jet ski. So a furious goddess can find a place to be quiet. So my brother can raise a daughter and be the father Odin never was. I hold it all for them, for all of them. I am the book and the reader. I am the library of all that is and all that could be. Sitting in silence, in the darkness, my burden is the freedom of everyone else. And for the first time in my very, very long life, I think I know who I am. The story is finally mine, not to write, but to protect. And that, I have found, is a purpose more glorious than any crown.